Hi, this is Bob Kebney. I am the Vice President of Commercial Lines here at Tag Insurance, and I want to welcome you to our Tag Insurance New Agent Commercial Lines training. Whether you've had years of commercial experience or you're new to the commercial insurance world, it's important to understand how the Tag commercial insurance process works. We've developed a system that will provide you with the most effective and efficient quotes, and speed is the most important thing, so we want to move as fast as we can. So understanding how we work will help you get your quotes faster. First thing that we use is a commercial email address. So the Tag Commercial Department, the email address is commercial@tagins.net. Submissions, inquiry, requests are all to be sent through the central email address. Please put the named insured and the type of request in the subject line of the email to commercial@tagins.net. So put your client's name, and then it may be a quote, it may be a billing issue. Help us out so we can track your submissions. We get a lot of emails just like you do in your office, and often we need to refer back to previous emails. Also, if you're following up on a submission request or there's a quote attached, forward that email so the quote's still attached so we can kind of follow up on it and help us keep track. So named insured, the type of request, and the subject line of the email. With some of the submissions, you may be working with an account manager directly here at TAG. If you are, you don't need to copy the commercial as you're dealing only with that account manager. But then once you go back to the commercial at tagins.net email address, please do not copy the account managers unless you're working directly with them. Accords. Accords are the language we use in commercial lines insurance. So to obtain a commercial quote, the agent needs to submit accords for the risk. The most common accords are the 125. You'll see it with almost every submission. GL, property, commercial auto, work comp. 126 is for GL and property primarily, and we'll see that that's where the limits of the policy come in. 127 is for commercial auto. The 130 is workers' compensation. The 131 accord is umbrella. The 137 is also commercial auto, and the 140 is the property accord. Sample accords and instructions for creating accords are available on the TAG agent portal. Agents must create the accords in AMS. These accords can be saved in AMS. Saving the accords will assist you in revising and for updating accords as you're doing your submission and also for renewal. Once you've completed the accords, you create a PDF, and you'll do that right in AMS. You're going to attach that to an email with your submission to the commercial@tagins.net email address for quoting. We do not go into AMS and pull out your accords. You need to attach them to that email. One of the best ways to expedite the submission process is fully completing the accords. The process is slowed by missing information. Below is a list of the most common items missing from accord forms. Named insured. Well, we usually have some kind of named insured on there. Often it's not correct. So what we ask you to do is check the Secretary of State page for your state. It'll show the true name of the company. An insurance policy is it's a legal contract, so we do have to get the named insured correct. It can be an issue if there's a claim. Also, sometimes you have to rewrite the policies if the named insured is not correct. The FEIN is very important. That's how we track commercial policies. It's the Social Security number for commercials, so to speak. Address and phone number. We need the address, obviously, of the client. And the phone number is important. Some carriers track submissions by phone number, so please include the phone number also. Expiration and effective dates, they should be the same, but sometimes we see some differences. What's most important is the expiration date of the current policy that you're quoting against. We need to know when that policy ends. The effective date should be the same as the expiration date, not the date that you want the policy to be effective. So make sure you let us know the expiration date. The business start date is a very important factor that's often missed on accords. It's important to know how long they've been in business. It'll certainly help when they're underwriting the case if the insured's been in business for a certain amount of period. If they haven't, that's okay. New ventures are taken. Let us know if there's some experience Person's been working 10 years in this field, now starting out on their own. Let the underwriter know those important features. The gross annual revenues, that's one of the most important rating factors for quoting the risk. So the gross annual revenues are really important. Payroll for construction contractors, that's one of the areas where they will use payroll to quote. So that's very important. The limits of the policy, we need to know how much they're going to be insured. You're going to get used to the pretty standard limits you're going to see on commercial policies. A good overall description of the business is very important. The underwriter does not have the pleasure of being able to meet your clients and see where their risks are. So please put a good description of the business. Let the underwriter know, are they working in commercial business, residential? They've been in business for 10 years. Something about the case that will describe them that will help the underwriter understand the risk. Current insurance coverage is important, especially if they have it. That's a great factor. If there's no coverage, that's okay. If they do have experience in the field, let us know. Property, we often see issues with building updates, electrical, plumbing, heating, and roof, especially roof. So we got to have updates. Here in Colorado, we got a lot of hail. The property is pretty tough, so we need to know, and they're going to have to find out when that roof was replaced. Named insured, we just talked about it. So as I mentioned, an insurance policy is a legal contract between an insurance company and a policyholder. It's critical that the named insured is correct on the policy. You can verify the named insured on the Secretary of State's page of your state. I've included a link for Colorado below. Every state has one on the Secretary of State, and you can search for the client. Please save time and make sure you got the named insured. For workers' comp policies, the underwriter will often verify that. It's going to slow down your submission if you do not have the legal named insured. Submissions, midterms. One of the items that creates confusion and causes significant delays are midterm submissions. We tend to run into more midterm submission issues with new agents. Now, what is a midterm? A midterm submission is a request for a quote outside the period of 120 days prior to the expiration date. So let me give you an example. If the policy for your client that you're quoting against expiration date is 1/1/2020, the period we would accept a submission for that policy would be 9/1/2019 through 1/1/2020. Any other date would be considered a midterm submission and would not be accepted. Why are midterm submissions not accepted? Well, the primary reason we don't accept them is we'll write very few of them. Our hit ratio is close to 50% for a complete commercial submission. The hit rate goes down to 6% for midterm submissions. So why is it so low? Here's some of the reasons that the success rate is so low and why we try to stay away from midterm submissions. One is they may include earned premium issues. And we're going to go over that a little bit later in the webinar, but your client can be charged additional premium for an early cancellation. With standard carriers, some of them will short rate, especially when the policy hasn't been enforced for very long. So those are issues that you don't want to move your client's policy and then they get charged a penalty. With a midterm submission, with a midterm submission, we're also quoting against last year's premiums. So every policy that I've seen, we don't see many of them go down. Almost everyone gets an increase on renewal. So when we're quoting against last year's with our carriers' renewal premiums, we're at a disadvantage. And also in the middle of a policy term, if we're able to quote one of your clients and match their premium, it's unlikely a client is going to cancel his policy for no premium reduction in the middle of his policy year. Now, at the renewal, if you were to submit a renewal quote and match the current policy, your relationship with that client, they may say, all things being equal, I'd rather have you handle the account, so that might work. But it really puts us in a disadvantage in the middle of the policy year. Refund issues, they've already paid their premiums, so now they got to get a refund. We need a new premium for the new policy, and there's always confusion over refunds, and they never seem to come as fast as agents would like them to come. The other factor that we look at is we try to get submissions and quotes going as fast as possible. So this will push back submissions that are currently at their expiration period. We often get submissions and they need to be quoted right away. It's coming up on renewal. So if we're working on a policy that doesn't renew for 6 months, it really doesn't make sense to push that ahead of policies that are about to renew in the next day or two. There are always exceptions to all rules. Some of the exceptions would be if someone's getting non-renewed. Sometimes they may be adding a different coverage. They're adding commercial auto or they're adding a building. That may make sense to quote it at that point. Exceptions have to be approved through the commercial department, so let us know what the reason is if there's some compelling reason. And I'll just give you a heads up. The most common one that we hear is the insured doesn't like his current agent. That does not qualify for an exception. You'll have to wait for renewal for that reason. Timeframes. Timeframes for your quote. Standard business, 2 to 4 business days. Surplus excess business, 4 to 7 business days. These timeframes are based on a complete submission, and most quotes are returned sooner, I can tell you that. Direct bill versus agency bill. When you write a commercial lines policy, the billing will be either direct bill or agency bill. The standard carriers will issue their policies on a direct bill basis. The customer will receive a bill from the carrier, and all checks will be made out to the carrier and mailed to the carrier. Obviously, we like direct bill the best because it takes us as the agent out of the billing process. The billing goes between the insurance company and directly to the client. Some of the standard carriers that we use here, you'll be familiar with most of them: Liberty Mutual, Travelers, Progressive Commercial, Guard, CNA, Secura, Hartford, Chubb. These are all standard carriers and they all use direct bill. Standard carriers, they also will offer payment plans, and the policies will generally automatically renew. Now, not all risks are going to fit into the appetites of our standard carriers. Here at TAG, 78% of the commercial insurance that we write fit into the standard markets. So that leaves 22%, or almost a quarter of it, that the standard markets will not write. So for risks that don't fit the standard markets, they'll be quoted through the surplus excess markets. These type of quotes will come from general agents. We have 4 preferred general agents that we use and we recommend that you use, and those would include Genesee General, Western Pacific, Burns & Wilcox, and RT Specialty. We've developed strong relationships with these 4 companies, and you'll get your quotes, I believe, quicker. And if we have issues with them, we know them very well and we can work easily with them. All of these policies written through the surplus excess lines are agency billed. On a policy written through a general agent, the payment will be made to our agency, TAG Insurance. Agency bill invoices will include gross premium, fees, surplus lines, tax. The agent must collect the total of these 3 items. Many general agent invoices are confusing, so make sure you're collecting the correct amount. The invoice that you're going to receive is actually the invoice from the general agent to TAG. So what you're going to find is they're going to be charging us the net amount. In other words, it is the gross premium, fees, and surplus lines tax minus commission is what we're going to send to our general agents. So the reason that we collect the gross premium, fees, and surplus lines tax, or the gross amount, is we hang on to your commission so we can pay you. So it's really important to get the gross commission. So if you pass on the agency invoice to your client, often they're going to pay the net, not understanding how it works. You're also going to see the commission amount will be referenced on those invoices, and you may not want to show that to your client. Also, agency billed policies do not automatically renew. So you're going to receive renewal instructions from the general agent. Hopefully at that point, you've saved your accords in AMS and you can go in on the renewal. You'll update gross payroll, any kind of changes to your client, and make it easy on renewal. Your client will not receive an invoice for a policy with agency billed, only from you as the agent. In other words, the companies will not send them an invoice. It is the agent's responsibility to invoice the customers. We talked about the confusing agency invoices. So what many agents do is they create their own invoice that shows the check needs to be made out to TAG and here's the amount paid. It can sometimes save you time of having to go back to the client. Agency bill policies need to be paid in full. If the customer is unable to pay in full, sometimes they don't choose to pay in full, then the policy must be financed. All financing must be obtained through TAG and our finance partner, IPFS. If you need a finance agreement, you submit a copy of your commercial quote to commercial@taggins.net. Say, I'd like to finance the policy, and we'll provide you with a finance agreement. The finance agreement will have a down payment and payments in order to pay the policy. The down payment for the finance agreement is made out to TAG Insurance, and the check along with the agreement must be mailed to TAG. It does not go to IPFS. Do not send checks or finance agreements directly to IPFS. Any endorsements, sometimes on a policy you're going to have an endorsement to if you want to add that to your finance policy, they are not automatically added. Sometimes the client might want to pay them in full, not want to add it to a finance agreement. So you must submit the commercial endorsement to a commercial@taggins.net, and we'll prepare you a finance agreement to add the endorsement amount to the current finance agreement. Once a policy is bound in the surplus excess markets through a general agent, a portion of the premium becomes earned. In the case of cancellation, the earned premium will not be refunded. We touched a little bit on earned premium when we talked about midterm submissions. So 25% of the premium, 25% of the gross premium plus fees are considered earned upon issuance. So if the insured does not pay 25%, at least 25% of the earned premium and the fees, the agent will then be responsible for that amount. This rule is included in the excess lines disclosure each TAG agent signs. So please make sure you collect the total annual premium or down payment if financing to avoid any earned premium issues. So just to be clear on that, if the gross premiums are $1,000 on a policy and there's a $200 fee, that's 25% of $1,000, $250 plus the fee, that's $450. So when you bind the policy, make sure you pick up a check for at least that amount. Now, if you finance the policy, our relationship with IPFS allows you to put a little bit less than 25% down. But if you get the down payment at the time of binding for the finance agreement, you will not have any earned premium issues. IPFS will pick up any shortfall. So please make sure you pick up your premium from your client. I would discuss the earned premium with your clients too. Make sure they're ready to take this policy and understand how it works. The last thing we ever want to see is an agent have to pay any type of earned premium. If you're binding a quote, and we hope you bind a lot of them, please send an email to the underwriter you're working with. So it may be an excess surplus underwriter. They've been providing the quote. And copy commercial@taggins.net. Your bind request should include some important information, including the quote you want issued and the date you want the policy bound. Please be specific on this. If you don't put the date, they will not know when it's bound and they will not bind it. Excess surplus risk generally cannot be backdated. We usually have a few days on the standard markets where we can go back, but that is not true on this excess surplus policy. So say I want ABC Company bound effective August 1st with a premium of $2,500. Make it clear and make it easy. Attach a copy of the quote. Make it easy so it's very clear on what you want to do. If a signed PFA is included in your bind request, please make a note in your email because we'll want to, at TAG, we'll want to pull off that finance agreement and keep a copy because we'll want to process that. Please attach your bind request in AMS activities. If you receive a binder and invoice from the underwriter in commercial@taggins.net, you see that we're not copied, please forward the email with the binder and invoice to commercial@taggins.net. We need the invoice in order to process the check. Sometimes the underwriters are, if you don't say that you're a member of TAG, they may not be familiar with you and they may not copy us. It can really slow things down on billing if we don't get a copy of that invoice. So make sure you include us, and please get used to attaching bind requests in AMS. It gives you a good way of remembering, if nothing else, of what you've done and giving a good history of this is when I did it in case there's any discrepancy. Checks. Direct bill carriers. Checks are made out to the carrier, mailed to the carrier. We talked about that. We love direct bill. business. Agency billed with the general agents, the check is made out to TAG, the full amount or the down payment if financed, and mailed to TAG. Make sure you collect, we're going to say this a couple times, to collect the gross premium, the fees, and the taxes. You must have an invoice in order to process a check. All too often, we'll get a check for the net. It won't include the fees or the taxes, and then you got to go back to the client, and it's never a fun thing to have to go back and ask for more money. I alluded to this earlier. One of the biggest challenges we have currently deals with agents not collecting checks and late payments. We get so many of them, and it's frustrating on our end. I know it's frustrating for the clients and for the agent. Please collect a check from the insured when binding your account. Do not rely on the client sending us a check. Sometimes they say they sent it and they haven't. You need to make sure that that is getting done. And we also want to avoid any earned premium issues. AMS. It is the agent's responsibility to add their commercial clients and policies in AMS. When adding your client's policy, make sure you select direct bill or agency bill correctly on the policy screen. So when you're setting up your client, it's preset to direct bill. You want to switch that to agency bill. It just helps set up the policy. If you're receiving an invoice and you see taxes and fees, then you know that's an agency bill. Please document your activities AMS. We just talked about it with bind requests. Attach your accords and your policy items. In the case of a claim or a complaint, you'll be required to supply these items. The best advice I can give you right now is to please use AMS and use activities, attach things. When you send someone a quote or you send a bind request or renewal, just make a quick note in AMS activities. It's going to make it so much easier if there's ever a problem or someone told you to do something, or if you ever recommend something and the client decides against it. We run into it with wind hail percentages. Clients will say, "Oh, that's all right, I don't mind that." Then the claim comes, all of a sudden, "Well, I didn't ask for that." So cover yourself. It is a great way to keep a history, and also as you get busier and busier, it'll help you remember the things that you've done. AMS will be your best friend for running your business. Pinnacle. For those of you in the state of Colorado, you'll become familiar if you're not already with Pinnacle. It's the state fund for Colorado. State funds are referred to as the carrier of last resort. It is required in all states that any business carry work comp. And because of some uses and some class codes, standard carriers will not write them. The individual states make sure that there is access to workers' comp policies, and that's where the state funds come. Unlike most state funds, Pinnacle is very competitive with preferred and non-preferred risks. So we really have an advantage here in Colorado. Our contract with Pinnacle is very specific, and we were able to get the contract with as many agents as we have. Agents cannot contact Pinnacle direct under any circumstance. You'll have to go through commercial at tagins.net for any kind of contact with Pinnacle. So if you're quoting, if you're binding, you have to go through our commercial email address. The people you'll speak to, the underwriters, will be very nice, and as soon as they hang up the phone, will call us. We don't want to violate our contract. When submitting work comp risks here in Colorado or anywhere, there's some items that are specific to a work comp applications that are important. We talked about the Secretary of State. I'd recommend going and checking the Secretary of State. Just print that page off and include it in your submission. You'll need the FEIN. You'll have to have that for a work comp submission. Often you'll need at least the last 4 digits of the owner's social security number. With Pinnacle, we'll have to have that in order to quote. Whether the owner wants to be included or is rejecting coverage. That's obviously very important, as the owner is going to be charged a higher premium, an owner amount. So we want to know if he's going to be rejecting it, and often the owner will reject coverage. We need to know the number of employees, the payroll by class code, a good description of the business. Again, the underwriter doesn't understand exactly what we're quoting, so please help them out. What the employee's duties are, and if they have previous work comp coverage, please include that. IPFS, we mentioned them earlier. This is the company that TAG uses for finance agreements. All financing needs to be requested through TAG. Some general agents, you may be working with Burns or Genesee or some of them, and by mistake, they may send you a finance agreement. Please do not use these. It creates quite an accounting nightmare for us. Please, please only use IPFS. So if you need a finance agreement, submit your request with a copy of the quote. We'll have to have a quote, and the address of the client has to be on the quote. Most of the time it is, but just make sure, and send it to commercial@taggins.net. When you're binding a policy that is financed, please forward the signed finance agreement and the check to the commercial department here at TAG. You'll be able to verify IPFS acceptance and AMS activities. You're going to generally get an email, and if you look in there, and you can see once you've submitted your IPFS quote that it's been accepted and the finance agreement has been created. CSR agent producers. Many agents have CSRs, and we're seeing more agents hiring producers. Agents are responsible for training and supervising their CSRs and producers. Anyone submitting business through the commercial@taggins.net email address must complete the agent training. We're almost to the end of our webinar. Again, I want to welcome you to TAG Commercial Training, and I'm going to give you a password that we put it interspersed in the webinar, and this will be one you'll want to send to Andrea. It's going to be Binder, B-I-N-D-E-R, Binder. We hope you have a lot of binders and a lot of business. I look forward to meeting each of you, and I really wish you all success. Thank you very much.